everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. Today I'm going to be showing you how I used a kit to create this awesome vintage styled layout. I can't wait to share this with you. I'm going to be using components from the Burnished Limitless kit for this layout. This kit includes some amazing pattern papers from Mintay and 49 and Market. I'm going to be recording a memory of this old-timey photo that was taken, and these patterns are going to be perfect for this. The kit also includes a stencil, garage paper elements, puffy alpha stickers, some charms, and tags. Now, because I love this vintage steampunk type look, I also snagged the Essentials kit. This includes some really cool chippies, die cuts, and other fun items like paint, photo corners, and a metallic marker. As I create this page, I'll be adding other items to my layout, and I'll list those in the description below along with a link to this kit. I'm going to start with the chippies because they're going to take a little time to dry. I have already added a coat of clear gesso to these so that I can spray them with Distress Oxide inks. I like to start with the lightest color, which is weathered wood, and build from there. The next layer will be walnut stain. Instead of spraying this, I'm going to use some acetate to apply it. This is going to give me a little more control of the color placement and give me some larger splashes of color. When you're using Distress Oxide sprays, you can choose to let the layers dry or add them wet on wet. Each one is going to give you a different effect. I placed that walnut stain onto the wet spray and let it dry before I added the aged mahogany. This color has more of a rust-like color that I wanted to stand out on the pieces. Layering does take a little bit of time because you want that ink to set before you add other colors. If you are impatient or pressed for time, you can use a heat tool to speed up the drying process. I do have a glass board that I work on in my craft space, but I still like to place the grip mat on my surface when I use sprays. The mat prevents the chipboard from shifting and makes it much easier to clean up when I'm done. I went a few rounds with the walnut stain, weathered wood, and the little bits of aged mahogany before I got the look that I wanted. Once all the Distress Oxide sprays were set, I brought in some splatters of metallic blue. I'm using the paint that came with the Essentials kit, and I've watered it down a little to make the splattering easier. I wanted a few larger blots of color and some small random splatters, so I just used a paintbrush, and then I sat all of this aside to dry. I have chosen one of the 49 and Market patterns for my page. I like how this already has a vertical frame printed on it with some stitching, and that's going to be a great place to put my photo. I have adhered the photo onto some black cardstock, and I'm going to layer some pattern papers behind it. I am distressing a few of these with ink and an edge distresser to give them a worn look. Not all of these came with the kit. The prints I'm using are part of the Mintay 6x8 paper pack, which I find is a great size for framing your photos. My first cluster of elements will sit at the top right, diagonal from the printed florals. Blue pairs beautifully with sepia tones, which is one of the reasons I'm adding it to the layout. Below that, I am adding a little bit of lace. Her dress has some beautiful lace and floral details, and I want to bring some of those to the design. The circle at the top of the page is a very large piece, so I'm going to start adding some more weight to this side of the page. I'm going to bring in a few vertical elements with tags and bits of ephemera. The tags I'm adding come with the Burnished kit. I chose ones with florals to help soften some of the bolder steampunk and vintage elements. I did cut these in half so that I could make them span the length of the photo, which creates a nice vertical anchor on the page. I completely forgot to film the part where I finished up the chipboard elements with copper embossing powder. I used an embossing ink dauber and added some blots of ink on each of the pieces. Then I sprinkled them with the copper penny embossing powder and heat set it. I made sure not to use any anti-static powder because I wanted some stray bits of powder to get onto the pieces, which gave them a great texture and a worn metal look. The theme for this layout is a moment in time, so I brought in a few clocks. I have added a little journal card at the base with a clock, and now I'm adding a larger one atop that denim circle. I'm also going to bring in some gears, which match that larger winged key that I'm adding. To finish off my triangle of elements, I'm going to bring in a third clock, a chipboard piece, a little gear, and a sign on the left side of the page. All right, so I'm going to start attaching all these items in place so that I can finish up some of the little details that I like to add. The chippies that are part of the Essentials kit are not very thick at all, so if you're one who's worried about all the layers, don't be. The 12 by 12 sheet you get with the Essentials kit is a plain chipboard color that you can use as is, add paper or paint to, or color with pencils, markers, or inks. Now you may have noticed that I did cut off the string from the tags before I added them to the layout. These each have a metal eyelet at the top, which does fit the page perfectly, but the white string, not so much. I plan on adding something different that is going to be a little bit more fitting to the page. While I finish adding these to the layout, I would love it if you tapped that subscribe button. Make sure to let me know in the comments that you are a new subscriber so that I can welcome you. If you've been enjoying my videos for a while, let me know that you liked this project by tapping that thumbs up icon or leaving me a comment below. The title for this page was kept really simple. I just added a little phrase at the base of the photo that says "a moment in time." The badge below it will be a space for journaling that the recipient of this layout can add later. Once all the items were added, I felt like this page needed a few more floral pieces to match the tags and the prints at the base of the page. I decided to fussy cut some sepia-toned leaves from one of the background papers in the kit and use them along the edges of the photo. My original plan was to cut some leaves using a die, but nothing I had quite fit the design. When I noticed the leaf images on the Mintay papers, I knew that they would be a perfect fit. I wasn't planning on using all of that pattern paper in its entirety, so cutting it apart for the leaf images was a great way to use it up. This page has a nice diagonal flow, but most of the weight is near the top right side. So I'm going to add a little weight to the base of the page by shading in the flowers that are printed onto the background. I just added a little bit of ink onto my glass board, watered it down, and used a brush to add some layers of color. This doesn't have to be perfect or precise. I don't have much in the way of painting skills, so I just added a few layers of color to give it some dimension. You could also shade these in blue to bring more of that color to the page, or use some gray ink that matches the chipboard pieces. Once all the images were filled with color, I splattered a little ink onto the page to bring more of that watercolor to the design. I'm going to add a few more items to this layout, and then we'll take a look at the completed piece. Here is the design that I shared with you today. Off camera, I added some twine to the tags at the top and wrapped some twine on that badge on the left. This matches the layout a little bit better than the twine that was on the tags. I've also added some ink around the edges of the page in a color that matches the photo. This leads your eye to the center of the page and brings in some more of that color near those florals. I'm going to share a few close-ups of this layout so that you can see all the little details. Today's project was created using the Burnished Kit and a few additional items from Not Just for Boys Kit Club. The elements in this kit have a vintage mechanic look with a bit of steampunk, but there are more than enough pieces to choose from to create a page that has nothing to do with a garage, vehicles, or mechanical items. I chose a timepiece theme for my memory and was able to pull together components and pair them with a few bits of ephemera I had left over from previous kits. I hope this project inspires you to do the same. If you are one who enjoys pinning photos to inspiration boards, I have added still shots of this layout on the Not Just for Boys Kit Club blog and on my website for you to use. If you would like more ideas for using this kit, you can join the Not Just for Boys Kit Club community on Facebook and see even more designs. I want to thank you for joining me for another scrapbook project. If you have any questions about this project or the supplies listed below, feel free to leave me a comment. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.